If you clicked on this video, we will just assume that most likely you are okay with your worldview being destroyed right now. And that is the topic of the video. When and where people allow themselves to let their worldview be destroyed. Now, I've recently noticed a lot of people who just don't listen, who just, you can just tell, have hardened their hearts and will not listen to reason whatsoever and will die on the hill of their worldview. And it's been discouraging me because I'm one who likes to think I always want to engage in trying to find the truth and just have conversations. But I've noticed all my conversations, not all obviously, but lately a lot of conversations have just been turning into like debates. And I do not like debates because I just want to know the truth. I just want to have a conversation. And I find myself having to like unrealistically either defend views I don't even hold because I can see the rationality in them, I can see some of the truth in them, or that's really the main one. It's just I'm trying to have the conversation and I'll bring up the counter argument and just to, just to play with it, because it is something I think should be acknowledged. And then it's just hardened heart and almost like they believe that I'm defending something that I'm not defending, that I am trying to change, that I am trying to push something upon them, which I am not. I am just trying to have a conversation. And I've noticed this objective fact that they will not accept because it will destroy their worldview. And that got me thinking, like, when and where are people gonna accept the fact that their worldview can be destroyed? Or I say destroy is a strong word, but just changed, like re-looked into. And it's clear people, I think this is why, I have many, I mean, I don't know, I haven't thought about it much lately, but in the past I thought much of therapy and how I don't really believe in modern therapy too well. I don't believe it's that beneficial. I believe that, Jungian, Carl Jung was an amazing therapist and his theories are deep and real. But I think most of the reasons modern therapy works is because people are putting themselves in a position where they're okay to have their worldview destroyed. You could tell someone the same exact thing a therapist tells them, and they'll listen to their therapist because of a few reasons. One reason, they when before they went into the conversation, if you go to see a therapist, you believe, probably 99% of them people believe that there's something wrong, they need help. So they are going there with the mindset of I need help from somebody. I am giving somebody money, so I want the help. I hope this pays off. And while I am talking to them, I am open to things. I am open because I don't feel good and I want to feel better. So what they say, I am open to. But say you're having a conversation with a buddy and it's a Friday night and you bring up something, you know, that destroys his whole worldview, he was not ready for this. Or she, they were not ready for this. They were going to a chill Friday night with their friends, becoming vulnerable, dropping everything, just wanting to enjoy time with friends, and then something deep got brought up, and then their ego feels like it got blindsided. And they say, whoa, 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 no, 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 no. I did not ask for advice. I did not ask for my worldview to be destroyed. I did not ask for this. And their ego just hardens the heart and becomes defensive. And you could be saying the same thing a therapist will say to them a week from now, a month from now, a year from now, or has said to them in the past. But their ego will not allow them to accept it unless they are wise. They will harden their hearts, and they're just not ready for their worldview to be destroyed. And I think we need to strive. The point of this video is to strive to always, as I said, worldview being destroyed is a strong way to put it, but change. Always be open to the idea that any given second, truth may be dropped upon you, and your duty is to consider it. Your duty is to humbly accept it, to hold two opinions at once. I forget who says it, but it might be like Henry Ford. But he was saying that the power, like there's true greatness and power in being able to hold two opinions simultaneously and giving in to neither of them. Being able to hold them, see the truth here, see the truth here, and just say, okay. And I think in that middle ground is a great place to be, because you're a seeker of truth in that middle ground. You are okay for change. You're okay for growth. You're okay for your worldview to change. And it frustrates me because I see, it's like I said with the therapist thing earlier, a therapist tells you something, you'll listen. But if your buddy tells you it, you're less likely to listen. And, it's like the same thing, when you're a kid and, your dad or your mom always tells you something, that like, or like in sports, like, you got to start doing this, it's like when you go up to bat, hold the bat a little bit like this, and then, lift your, keep your like shoulder here, do that. And then you're like, no, that's stupid, this, that, and the other. And, you're like, I'm not listening to him. What do they know? And then your coach comes over and he says the same exact thing. And you're like, okay. Because the nature of the conversation, you approached it so much differently. Your heart was hardened from the beginning. But with the coach, you categorize him as somebody who can destroy your worldview. Potentially, not even some people won't even let a coach do it. And these are the people who are truly lost. But my main point is just to help us see the bias in others, and most importantly in ourselves, because we do this too. I do this too. And it's only after the fact I can see and realize it. And the awareness of it is great, because slowly over time you can bring that awareness to the present moment and realize, no, I'm not gonna avoid this truth I'm seeking. I'm not gonna be willfully blind right now. I'm gonna entertain it. I'm gonna uphold this opinion, this worldview, and see, compare it to my other one. And maybe I do need to change. Maybe I am wrong. Maybe this is right. Maybe it's uncomfortable. Maybe it's weird. Maybe it's, I don't know, but it's worth looking into. We do not want to be willfully blind. We do not, the I think the old Egyptians, that was the chief sin. It was to be willfully blind. And I might butcher names and I'll probably butcher the story, but I'm pretty sure Horus, no, I think Horus is the eye. It might be Horus, but it was one of the Egyptian gods, and his brother was like evil and wanted to take over, and he turned a blind eye to him because he was his brother, and his brother ended up killing him, chopping up like 7 of his body parts and sending them over the world, and that was how they got, big. Uh, that might have been how they got all the continents. I don't know. It's like early Egyptian stuff, so it's like world building stuff. And but yeah, the moral of that story is that he was willfully blind to his brother's evilness, and then in the end, it caught up with him. And to be willfully blind is the worst thing you can do, because that ignorance you keep due to being willfully blind may be blissful for a little bit, but it will catch up to you, and it's compounding. That whole time you're turning a blind eye to it, and we do not want to do that. We do not. The truth, we have to believe that the truth will set us free, and we have to allow ourselves to, so many, I want to just return to that point where, so many people only accept advice when they're like money's on the line. You can tell somebody, oh, I want to get in shape. And then you can say, all right, do some cardio, do some, do some squats, do some benches, do some, some benches. Um, you get the point. Do some, um, do some core, work out, go to the gym, eat healthy. And then they're like, I don't know, this, that, and the other. And then they go pay, $100 a week for a personal trainer. And then they're dialed in. And all their personal trainer's doing is like, yeah, like go do push-ups. And like, here's a meal plan. And it's like bland food you probably would have expected. And the person's like, all right, this is, yeah. And, part of that is obviously somebody holding you accountable, which is good. But it's the fact that the people just, they almost like, I mean, it makes sense and it's kind of a different point altogether, but people like almost need to they need to put skin in the game for their worldview to be changed. Like no one can just have a nice, happy, chill conversation and be like, huh, yeah, that makes sense. It's like there's got to be like you got to be losing money, you got to be, like on the brink of killing yourself. You have to be like trenchily down bad. And that's something I see us humans do. We wait till we're too far gone to try to recorrect. We could slowly be getting off course and we think, oh, I'm right next to the path though. It's not that bad. It's not that deep. I'm still so close. And then you just slowly keep veering and veering, and then one day you find yourself so far away, and then you have to, make huge overcorrections to get back. And we don't like catching anything early. We like catching it too late. And then, saying, I'll deal with it when the time comes, in the future. That's a problem for future me. That's something I used to say, which was kind of a joke, but kind of not. And that was like the worst thing ever. I was like, it's a problem for future me. I like, yeah, future me can deal with that. I'm not studying for this test. Future me will just have to deal with that. And that's obviously a horrible way to view things. And I was very young. Um, but that almost seems like a lot of what people bring into the real, like what people bring into their real lives. And the main point of the video is just, I don't know, I've just been passionate lately about how I feel like everyone's hearts is hardened. No one, nobody, I mean, and I feel like I'm probably unbiased and I'm a fool and I'm all these things, but I feel like I yearn to have my worldview changed. I yearn for the truth, and it hurts me when I figure out what I believe is to be truth, and I have a conversation with somebody about it, and they just can't accept it, and they're just coping, and they're just not understanding the words that I am saying, and their counter arguments, their retaliations, and are off topic. Not even what I'm saying, not even addressing the point. And it's like, I'm sorry, but I don't know if these people are stupid or if they're subconsciously avoiding getting their worldview destroyed. And I think it's the latter, and I hope it's the latter. And because I don't think these people are stupid, but it's like, you like, you do not hear what I'm saying. I'm not telling you my opinion on this subject. I'm not telling you, what I even believe. A lot of the times lately, it's not even been what I believed. It's been what it's been opinions that I've entertained because I've seen the truth in them, and they've changed my worldview, but I still haven't completely accepted them. I've still held other worldviews, but I've merged these into them. And you bring these points up to people, and it's like they just like they just malfunction. They think accepting this worldview means their whole worldview. They don't see a way it can be intertwined with it, and maybe it can't. But there's nothing wrong with that. We have to believe that the truth will set us free. We have to be committed to a life of lifelong learning, realizing that we do not know it all. And if we think that we know it, then we cannot learn that which we do not know. And we do know it in a gross, twisted way because we will not learn anything if we believe we know it already. And I just like that's just what I see with so many people. I know so few people who, so few, so few, who are still learning. It's like, you graduate high school or you graduate college and the learning's over. It's like, what? Are you a fool? I've I learned baseline things in school, but I learned nothing of value. I mean, that's an overstatement. Um, but I've learned things of much more value after the fact because I fell in love with learning. School made me dislike learning, but now I am curious and I love learning. And I've gained so much more fruit. It seems to me, obviously, like learning how to read and write is very fruitful, and I couldn't do any of the things without that. But you know what I mean? Like in the last like 2 to 3 years, it's like the fruit I've obtained. I've learned so much more than I learned, say my 2, 3 years of, high school. You know, I mean, I didn't do this is kind of beside the point, but I didn't do any homework. I didn't study for anything. And I graduated early. And that's not to say that I'm smart. That's not to say that I'm, I excel. I didn't have all A's. I didn't take honors classes. I just, like CB student, and I just graduated early. Like, school is just so easy. You don't have to try. And it doesn't promote good learning. And then people think you learn absolutely jack in school. And then people think, whew, I'm done. It's like, you haven't even started, man. You haven't even started. You haven't even started doing the fun stuff yet. That's all beside the point, but obviously part of the point, but the main point. And the practical knowledge, because I don't like being a pen and ink philosopher. I don't like being on here strictly academic and intellectual. And the practical advice is that we all do this too. We all are biased, even though we can think we are unbiased. And we need to realize that these things are in ourself too. We subconsciously don't like our worldview being destroyed, especially like in the scenarios I said. Sometimes that's the other like deep point. It's like sometimes we are open to it, and then sometimes it just blindsides us, and we instantly the ego just instantly comes out and says, "No, I did not accept this. I did not sign up for this." And we need to stop that. We need to take that barrier down. That should be our default. Our default should be no barrier, letting the truth come in. We shouldn't have to like willfully consciously be like, all right, I'm paying Joe Smith $100 a week to help me fix my life. Whatever Joe Smith says in my 30-minute therapy session, I need to implement, I need to do. He is right, I am wrong. And then it's like, you just get advice you've already got, but now you're vulnerable, you're accepting it. You're like, okay, he's qualified. Maybe. But as I said, the practical advice is realizing this in you and realizing it in others, because I don't really know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know what to do when hearts are hardened. I dealt with it last night, and I listened to a conversation for an hour plus, and I didn't say a word because I could tell one man had his heart hardened, and I was just there like, well, anything I say is a waste of breath. It will fall on deaf ears. It will be rationalized with, and I don't think that's the right way to go about it. But I mean, I'm a fool still, so I still have to experiment and trial with things. Because I think, sometimes you can say things that in the moment don't land, but when they can linger. And then when there is a time where that person is open to the worldview change, they remember that and they say, damn, he was kind of right. That's kind of true. So I think probably talking is the best action, but it's like, it's discouraging for sure. It's discouraging for sure when you see hardened hearts and passionate conversations, and people look at it as a debate, not a conversation. They don't let you get a word in. They don't want to hear your points. They just want to spew off their worldview to you. And it's hard. It's hard. I really don't know. I don't think silence is the answer, but I mean, there's the story of the Spartan, and they asked if he was a fool because he stayed silent all lunch or something, and he said a fool couldn't keep his mouth shut. And sometimes to be silent isn't the smartest thing to do, but it's never the foolish thing to do. Sometimes it's the foolish thing to do. That's the thing with wisdom. It's never black and white. But I think you get the point. You know, sometimes, we do have two ears and one mouth for a reason, and sometimes you got to listen. You got to listen a lot more than twice than you speak, and sometimes you got to talk more than twice than you listen. But the main point is, don't harden your heart. Accept truth. Allow your worldview to be changed whenever and wherever, and realize that sometimes these people their hearts are already hardened. Their worldview will not be changed. You may plant seeds for a different time in a different place, but their ego is already taken over. Their ego will already not accept defeat, and they did not come into this conversation wanting to change their worldview, and they will not leave it changing their worldview. And that's just the nature of it.